So ethical investing matters. So nice to have or absolutely essential? And we would suggest that this is an essential subject to the extent that our service, which is headed by an atmospheric physics scientist, Dr Quintin Rayer, who I'm afraid isn't able to be here today, so he's kindly volunteered me to come in and run the presentation for him. But the point I want to make is just a couple of weeks ago, Dr Quintin Rayer was at a conference at Oxford University, and if you look over to that side of the room, you will see Net Zero Carbon 10. That poster was up at the conference, and I shall come back to that towards the end of my presentation. Unsustainable human activities. Companies are not just the bad guys, but we need them to help, and financial markets are a means of directing companies towards better behaviour. James talked about demographics. I mean, demographics is a big problem for us. I mean, well-developed countries are looking to enjoy the fruits of their using the atmosphere as a rubbish dump for their industrial development and so on. But regretfully, of course, you know, third world countries are looking at us enviously and saying, well, you know, if you guys have had this, how about we get a slice of it? And that's a real issue that we've got to address. So, companies not the bad guys. Companies span the globe and are able to achieve objectives that individuals cannot alone. So companies can help us here, tackling three issues of environmental issues, climate change, and social issues. What do we mean by social issues? Things like exploitation. We need to prevent companies from externalizing costs of the business into the environment, i.e. using the atmosphere as a rubbish dump. Think of a company as an organization. What is it? It is a group of people. They are together. If they work together for the future benefit and the good of the world, those behavioral issues within companies can relate to help the issue we're all facing. One of the ways we look at this in terms of fund managers in the City of London, and I come back to James's point about the use of cement in production. Well, cement is a vital constituent of building a lovely property. A business will use a property perhaps as their head office, and that's fine. So they will then say that their beautiful building is socially responsible, it has the greenest high energy standards and so on and so forth. Then you think about a property fund, the fund managers who have properties in their portfolios. So again, the same consistency of high standards of build, ethical, tick in the box, a green building, wonderful. Then you look at the tenants who are in there paying the rent, which pays the dividend to the investors. Think about who's vetting those tenants in that fantastic building. I just leave that as a question out there. So, financial markets can help control companies, and this is by raising these issues with those. The effect of, say, ethical behaviour, think about the corporate governance within a firm, a business. What about excessive payments to the board directors? What signal does that send to society? Think about the E, the S, and the G in ethical investing. Is governance really the most boring element of that? Think about corruption, think about the LIBOR scandal, excess bonuses, and perhaps the ability of the directors to control the action and behaviour of their staff. So, sustainable investing. This is having funds directed into companies with business practices capable of being continually developed without causing harm to current or future generations. Sustainability, in other words, think about the future generations, and again, James referenced this in his presentation. This quote at the bottom, ensuring development needs ensuring development meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That is a direct quote from the Brundtland Report, 1987. Think about the golden rule: do as you wish to be done by. So future generations will enjoy or suffer for our behaviours. Very simple analysis: if you fish all the tuna out of the sea, we all love the taste of the tuna, but what about the next generation when there are no tuna left? The price of conscience, otherwise known as the fear factor. There is an understanding and a misconception that by directing your investments into this space, that there is necessarily going to be a lack of return or performance. We think that at P1, having done rigorous peer research studies, this is not necessarily the case. Now, this is something I won't have time to go into today, but of course we'd be very happy to have that conversation after this presentation. The businesses who are investing in will be looking to themselves now, because this had come up the agenda to the extent that it has. You have the demonstrations we're now seeing on the streets. Lots of companies are now sort of saying that this is probably very high up the agenda in their corporate and governance structure. An ethical culture is a good thing for a company to be able to employ and instill in terms of behaviour. And we would say that by holding themselves up as a corporate beacon to society, give them an advantage in things like attracting and retaining top talent, revenue from new products, services and technologies, and things like the behaviour of their share price. Do we concentrate and punish companies for bad behaviour? And I think everyone in this room has the ability to be able to dictate how these companies behave through the power of their mandate or investment that they hold in those individual businesses. So the P1 ethical process started by Dr Quintin Rayer, and it's very, very simple. We're determined to make a difference. Everybody wants to be different, but we're determined to make a difference. And we've been set up our service here with a very simple mandate to do ethical investing as well as possible given real-world constraints. So, very simple graphic there for the three pillars that support our service. A bio here for Dr Quintin Rayer. He is, I call him John the Baptist. He's out there beating the investment industry with a big stick. He's increasingly getting recognised in terms of his publications. What I would say is, if you're interested in this subject, and certainly Dr Quintin Rayer himself, I would encourage you to look at the P1 website, look at the research section. There are scores of articles that he has written, he's had published externally. We then pull those back and we hold them on our research page. I think in terms of trying to persuade the public to understand and get a measure of this issue and how they're able to sort of get on this journey with us and help these companies behave better, that research is well worth looking at. Thank you. Behind Dr Quintin Rayer, we have an ethical oversight committee with 3 senior specialists in their chosen subject of environmental, social and governance. This is really to give monitoring to what we're doing as an investment company to make sure that we're not missing something that those 3 specialists feel should be held really high in our performance and our choice of fund managers that we use in our performance models, our investment models. And so really, to come to the end of my presentation, and obviously with James's excellent summary of the realistic problems we're seeing in climate change, P1 and global warming taking that very, very seriously. Now, this information was shared with you by James, but in effect the behaviour of the planet, and we're heading through the 3-degree target, there's no question. As I say, I don't need to cover James's excellent presentation, but we're totally on the same page as far as this is concerned. And to P1 and the net zero carbon 10 target, we are delighted that this initiative that we started has been adopted now by 4 of the major fund management groups in the City of London. And this is a commitment that they have signed to work with us to ensure that as a start, they are cleaning their holdings of carbon, and to the extent that 10% of the fund assets under this programme will be carbon clean or working towards that. There is a huge pressure for us to develop this further with the city and to get other fund managers to sign to this commitment and this initiative. This is us trying to influence the behaviour and engage with the fund management industry to improve behaviour. Thank you very much. That finishes my presentation.